Hi, welcome to this particular video. It's the first of two on vectors. The first one will cover include files, and also then I'll implement a palindrome detection program. And so I will just start going through. Vectors are very much like arrays, but the main difference is that you can add to and then remove elements from a vector, unlike an array, which is a fixed length grouping of items. You can have an array of various types, as well as you can have a vector of various types. In this case, then, since I am doing a palindrome, I don't know how large of character array I would need, so I'm using a vector of characters instead to determine whether a particular string is a palindrome or not. And might as well just get into it so that I'll go ahead and show you what a palindrome is and what a vector is. We have two files, and I'll go ahead and view Solution Explorer, go into Palindrome, which is the main file. Again, with all files I do, I always have the name of the file, my name, the date it was created, and the purpose of it. It has a certain set of standard library include files, and algorithm. I think algorithm and vector are the two that you have not seen before. Vector then allows me to create these vectors, which I said are very much like arrays, except that I can add to and subtract or remove elements from the vector that I can't do easily in arrays. In arrays, if I outgrow the size of the array, then I have to create a larger array and then copy over the elements from the first array to the second array. Then I can keep on adding until I run out of space on the second array. And I can then have a pointer that was originally pointing to the first array and pointing to the second array, and then garbage collect the space that I had for the first array. That's the nice thing of vector, is I don't have to have all that overhead, because I can easily add to or remove items from the vector. Then the other thing I wanted to show you is the include. If you notice the difference between the includes here, the old-fashioned includes have quotes around them, and these are the includes that are created by the user. And then I have a .hpp to indicate it's a C++ header. I could easily have a .h file, and on the second example, I purposely have just a .h file to show you the difference. Then I'll go through a little bit of the logic of a palindrome. And I have a pal for palindrome, then a continue check, which I use then to see if I want to go, and do a second palindrome. Then vector, this is the difference. If you notice on a vector, like if I had an array, I just have a char with square brackets afterwards, which would indicate then that it was an array of items, and then I'd have to specify the size, or else have an equal with curly braces with the items specified in them. If you remember from the Mancala program that I have a video of, if it's right next to this, you can go look at that to see how I had created an array. This way then is a vector of characters, and then I have an index and a Boolean is_pal, which just tells me whether it is or is not a palindrome. and I will act accordingly. Then index is something because I can use a for each to go through one or the other, but then I have to use an index to go through the other one to start making the comparisons of the two, which I'll get into the logic here. Then welcome to the Palindrome testing program. Then I will do a loop, and I allow the person to enter the palindrome. This is the routine that I created, which I'll explain what it is, but I can do any input and it handles it nicely. And then input is defined in the input.h or HPP file. And true means then that I want everything switched to all uppercase so that it's easier to compare the palindrome to strings or to vectors, because a lowercase a is not the same as an uppercase A, as is true for any other character. There's always a ANSI character code for each character. And again, an uppercase character does not have the same ANSI code as a lowercase character. So I have to make them consistent to be able to make the comparison. Then since I can loop through this, then I'm clearing out both vectors so they have nothing in them. Then I go through the palindrome, which I have typed in, and I go through it one character at a time, checking if the character is a space, a period, a comma, question mark, hyphen, underscore, forward slash, backslash. Then since backslash is an escape character, I have to say I want to escape the backslash, so I have a backslash, backslash, or it can be a vertical bar. For each character, I can also print out, sometimes for debugging purposes, I have a debugging line which I print out. Instead of getting rid of it, I just comment it out so I don't use it anymore. And this is the first vector, is the character values. Then dot pushback loads the first character from this loop to a cleared character values vector. And then I likewise do it to the character check vector. So I'm filling them up at the same rate. At the end, then I print out their sizes, and they should be the same. In fact, they've always been the same. Then I go through and reverse the character check string. I change the, which is just from beginning to end. So everything in that group of characters, I will just reverse order. So I'm going through from the beginning to the end of check character and just reversing everything. At this point, then I can go ahead and check the character values versus the check values. And just for the fun of it, I'm printing out the results. And I am then saying that is palindrome is true unless it finds two characters that do not match, and false. Then if I have the two characters that do not match, I go ahead and break out of it, because there's no sense in checking the rest of the characters, because they'll be probably mismatches also. And if I go through all the characters and it doesn't find a mismatch, then that means it is a palindrome. So I say then is pal question mark. If it is palindrome, I just print out a space. And if it's not a palindrome, I spit out or print out a space, not space, and then palindrome. Then I ask, do they want to go again? And again, this is reading the input. So I say true, so that no matter if a person types in a capital Y or a lowercase y and likewise N, then it'll just, in this case, check for a capital Y, because I am going to go ahead and check just the first character. So if I type in yes, doesn't make any difference. Then it will just check the first character to make sure that it is a Y. Then I just say input, enter to exit. And this just allows then the user to wait to make sure that they see everything before going away. Then on the view solution, the next thing I'll show you is the HPP file. It's a very short file and starts off with pragma once, which should work in all cases. In older systems, it will not work. So I also have an if not def, which is a precompiler command. Anytime I have a pound over here, it is always then first pass through the code. It is always looked at. And in this case, it says if not defined. So if it is not defined, it'll go through all the code until it finds the end if. If it is defined, then it will skip to the end if. And here is the, again, IOStream, string, and algorithms. We need those three for the input. And this is a prototype so that the user can, just by including this, have the information of how to call this routine. And in C++, you have default values that are passed in. If I just have call input with parentheses, then it will go ahead and just call the enter, and that's what will be printed out on the command line, and then it will just keep everything the same. It will not move everything to uppercase. Then if I do pass in something, it will be assigned to instructs. If something's passed in on just the first one, it will have whatever's passed in assigned to instructs instead of enter. And if a second parameter is not passed in, then it'll be false. If both parameters are passed in, then they're set to whatever the user passes in. In the examples I gave, then I gave an instruction and I said true so that everything would be switched to uppercase. And here's the end if. Then we'll go back to the solution editor. And here's the input and input.h. This just shows that I have everything included so that I don't have to do a re-include of the system files, and a description of what this will do. And then the parameters are a string containing the instructions to be printed and a Boolean that can be set to return all uppercase letters. Default is false. And in this case, I have the default values so that people do know what they are. If they take a look, return the string that is typed. And if the latter one is true, then I return it as an uppercase string. And the defaults will always be defined in the header. They don't have to be defined here once they're defined in the header. Those were already there. Then again, I'm returning a string, standard value of the return value. I just use retval, set it to the string, which matches what I expect to return. So at least I know that that's taken care of. I don't have any value in there yet, but I have to make sure that it is set before I return anything. And bad entry, I'll just assume that we won't have any problems with bad entries, but I will set that if we do encounter a bad entry. and I type out instruct and then colon space to make it look nice and neat for the user. Then I loop until I get a valid entry. And what a try does is it goes ahead and tries these commands. So I'm going to do a get line, which will just read until the enter. And if all I have is an enter, then I'll return a zero length string. Then I do a clear. And then I just set bad entry to false. If there's going to be a problem, it'll happen in one of the first two lines. And if no line happens, then I'll just set bad entry to false. And if a bad entry does occur, then I'd have an exception. EX, and please retype your entry. Then I say bad entry equals true. And so then I loop back up to the do loop for every bad entry. Then I check to see if uppercase default is false. So it won't do any of these if it's the default value. And if it's not the default value, then I will do the for each again from beginning to end. And then the ampersand stands for passing by reference, not by value. Most routines do pass by value, which means that I can change this any way I want, and it won't affect what is in the original string. However, I do want to affect the string. So if you notice, I am passing a pointer to the element in the string, and then I'm doing C equals to upper C. So I'm changing this to uppercase version of itself. So everything is the same. If it is a true, then I return the ret value. And again, is ret val is a string. Then I go from beginning to end to change it all to capitalized characters. If the bad entry, or excuse me, if they make upper is true. So that is what this is, and you might want to see what it looks like. So I can enter my palindrome. Notice a car. And it says a car is not a palindrome. I will do yes again and type in race. And race car is a palindrome. Of course, the name Bob, all it has to be same forward and backwards. Oops. That's one problem, is I didn't say enter exit. Bob is a palindrome, and I will just go ahead and enter to exit. And then that shows you what this is. And I will leave it at that. Thanks for watching this.